Boys, another episode of the potty. I'm back for China. It's good to see you guys. Actually, I haven't physically seen any of you yet. I know I'm seeing Scotty tomorrow, and I don't know when I'm seeing you, MG. Maybe we'll catch up soon. But it's good to see your faces. It's good to be back on the potty. We missed last week because China was a bit crazy busy. But how's everything going, MG? How's everything on your end?
Really good, man. Really good. I'm seeing the knee surgeon on tomorrow. Today's Wednesday. Jeez, the weeks are flying. I'm seeing the knee surgeon tomorrow, so likely by next week's potty, well, definitely by next week's potty, I'll have a little bit of clarity as to if I'm going to be able to get it done this year. If all goes to plan, I'm going to try and get it done in the second or third week of December, and maybe just finish up a little bit earlier. That'd be the ideal outcome, because man, it's almost every day now where if I just make the turn too sharply or too quickly, it just comes out. And I was on the adduction machine the other day. This happened in Bali. I'm not sure if you remember, Scotty, but I was on the adduction machine and I was doing my set, finished the set, but as I went to put the plates back on the rack, that last kind of inch and a half, and it really opened me up, it came out.
Yeah.
The other day at Derrimut, it came out like way worse, literally to the point I was like, oh God, I had to knock it back in. And then what happens is it swells up really, really quickly. And then, it's quite sore, which I imagine is from the inflammation. When I go home, I'll ice it, I'll take an anti-inflammatory. The next day, most of the pain's gone, but it's just super unstable. So, yeah, I'm really just ready for it to be done with, man.
So what do they need to do? What's the surgery?
So they'll go and do an arthroscope. There's a Baker's cyst at the back of the knee that needs to be removed as well. But in the very near future, man, it'll have to be a knee replacement, because there's a bit of arthritis in there already, and it's just getting worse and worse. So,
well, hopefully all goes well. It'll be good if you could get. I know it's summer break, etc.
Oh, it doesn't matter, man. It's more just perfect timing. Like, we're not traveling for work with all the NBA shows and stuff. We're going to take some time off anyway, so it's not time away from the gym. I can still look after Talia with an arthroscope if it just being that. So it's just the best time of the year to have it done.
Yeah. How you doing, Scotty? I saw you on your story the other day. You were yanking on someone's leg. You were trying to dislocate someone's knee. Your missus, I saw you doing some kind of challenge where you're trying to lift her up. What are you guys doing?
Oh God, man. Jen has these. She watches these things on not TikTok, but like reels, just like trends of people doing things. It's some like dance thing, and it was like a partner challenge. She's been showing me it for like weeks, and all of these failed ones of people trying to pull up like really heavy people, then falling backwards or falling into the wall or a pool. And then she said, we should try and see if we can do it. And then I'm like, oh, it wouldn't be that hard. And we did it the first time. I'm like, see, that was easy. And then she watched it back and she's like, that was too easy. We didn't do it right. And then she said, let me record it. And then I was worried I was going to pull a leg out of the socket, but I didn't. So yeah, it's funny. People randomly just commented on that saying, oh my God, that was amazing, blah, blah, blah.
It's funny because Jen told me and MT that you've been pushing her to do it for weeks, and you actually were the instigator.
Yeah, you got me. No, she I don't normally like doing that sort of stuff, as you guys know. I'm not very active on socials.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I don't think I've ever seen Scotty Morrell doing a social media trend video in my life. So.
We need more of him, Scotty.
Never. It was the first and probably the last. But although maybe that's what I need to do, because it definitely got a lot of traction. But when your beautiful wife asks something, you obviously oblige. You always know the drill with that. But no, it was fine. It was funny.
Just don't do it with MG with his new knee.
Do you know what? Actually, she said to me that she had messaged me, and me was like, I can't do that with Michael because it'll probably fucking break him. And Jen was like, would it really? And I was like, no, his knee's fucked. It would actually break him.
Yeah, when do people start talking about me like I'm some fucking 80-year-old man?
I think it's more just knowing that your knee, bro, you need a new knee. Like, what can you do?
It's fucked, isn't it?
Yeah.
But yeah, let's all get in Scotty's, maybe not Scotty, let's get in Jen's ear, and let's see if we can encourage her to maybe do one trend with Scotty a month.
It depends what they are, bro.
I'm gonna lead that charge.
Yeah, it could be up a can of worms here, my guy.
Let's see where we land.
All right. Did much happen while I was away?
I reckon, man, for the most part, people are just freaking excited to hear from you and find out what China was like. I know I saw the NBA page, the Instagram page going off while you guys were there with people. I saw so many messages like, when's the next show? When's the next show? And I think a lot of people didn't maybe know the show was happening, even though we did have it on our socials. But, we didn't go crazy in the promotion of it, being the first one. And wanting to get a feel for what it was going to be like before we really went hard. But the page was going off while you guys were there after you were posting the story. So, man, fill us in. Like, how was the experience? What were the highlights? And, what was the quality like in China?
Yeah, China was absolutely amazing. As I kind of said to you, I didn't know what to expect, and it honestly blew my mind. I think, what we spoke about is we wanted to go over there to see whether we aligned with them, their values, our values, how they run the shows, things like that. And, it didn't take too long to see that we are perfectly aligned with them. They're almost like the China NBA, like, especially because they've only been around for about a year or two, but they're all about putting athletes first, trying to put on the best production possible, even if they spend a lot of money, which they did, and making sure that everything's fair. So fair judging and testing. And I'll get to that in a second because that freaking blew my mind, the testing component. But it was really good. So we arrived there late on Saturday. We got greeted at the airport. It was a little bit awkward and embarrassing for us because they came with gifts and they were like taking photos with us and stuff, which was super awesome. And then we traveled to the city that we had to go to, which was Nanjing, which is a really, really old city in China, which has a lot of history. And we pretty much called it a night that night. And then the next day they took us around, which was Sunday. We did a full day of travel, which was really, really cool too. They pretty much fed us lunch and dinners, which were really, really nice. It was good to see the culture, take it all in, and also just experience China, a little bit of China at least. And then Monday was, the athlete briefing. So it was almost like they had an athletes village, which is awesome for when we take athletes over there, because it was all in an apartment complex, like a hotel, a really, really nice hotel and apartment complex in a really, really nice area of China, affluent area. And the guy that owns the federation over there, Super Coach, he has 2 gyms. And one of his gyms is in the apartment complex. It's an amazing gym. It's got like a lot of life fitness, techno gym stuff. So you basically go to the apartment, you stay there, they're fully serviced. There's a gym there. There's a big room where they do like yoga and stuff, but it's got, proper flooring with mirrors so you can practice all your posing and stuff. And then that's where they have the athlete rego and briefing and check-in, and they do all the weigh-ins, but then they also do blood testing. So they blood test every single athlete for drug testing purposes, which completely blew my mind because I was just like, firstly, testing every athlete is really unheard of, drug testing every athlete, but blood testing people was just like next level. And I don't know if you saw in my stories, but they basically come in, it's looked like a nurse's office, and you've got the nurses there, and you basically roll up your sleeve and they blood test you, they pull a vial of blood, and then the next person comes, it's just like a process they do. And I couldn't believe that the next day we were at the judge's desk and they're like, oh, and here's the results from yesterday. And we're like, what? They
crazy, man. Man, we can't even get blood test results here in Australia for a real serious medical condition that quick.
I know. So I was like, they gave us the results the next morning, which was absolutely crazy. So, one of the big things that I learned about China is they have natural bodybuilding federations there, but no testing gets done because in China, only the government and the police can urine test you. Only the government and police can polygraph test you. So the only other option is to blood test you, which is super expensive and no one really wants to do. But Sean, the guy that owns Supercoach, he's invested that money in. He's found a private provider that will come out and do all the blood testing and do all that for him. So he's really, and this is why I say it's similar to NBA, because he's shaking up the industry there. He's, a lot of people aren't liking him at the moment because of the honesty that he's putting out there to say that we are truly natural. We're testing everyone. Here it is. And he's actually showing it. And that's the reason why he's building so much momentum. And that's the reason why, and I'll explain this in a second, is that people were overwhelmed with emotion when they were winning because they were winning something they knew was truly natural. Because they've been to other federations, and we're talking about federations that are not only in China, but they're also worldwide. And they're like, oh, I didn't win, or oh, I placed, but it wasn't against people that I know are definitely natural. So that was a really, really big deal. So that was on Monday in the morning. And then I obviously had to do all my check-ins, my coaching stuff. And then Monday night, we actually went to the venue to do like a technical briefing, athlete briefing. We did like a stage walkthrough. And that's when I sent those videos of like all the LED screens and everything going off at the venue. And then we actually allowed the athletes to do as much stage walking as they wanted. So they could get up, they could use the stage, they could do like a full run through as if they were getting presented, all that kind of stuff.
Awesome, man. Awesome.
And then they got us up, the NBA people. So it was myself, Stu, and Chin Chin. And we actually did like a Q&A where the athletes would have in the audience and they'd have microphones and they'd ask us questions and we'd have to answer their questions. So
Awesome,
it was
man.
pretty cool. Like it was a proper athlete briefing. I don't know how that would go down in something like Australia because we've never done something. That's not our format, not the way we do it, but it was definitely useful and very, very interesting that they did it that way. So that was really, really cool. And we got to meet some of the athletes. Obviously, no one speaks English. I think bar one or two people that I met. Actually, one of the guys there that competed in men's physique, he actually done an NBA show in Australia. Yeah, so he goes, look, I've met you guys before. And he's like, he's showing us a photo of him on stage. I think he competed in 2023. So that was really, really cool. And then the next day was the show on the Tuesday, which is funny because it's on a Tuesday. But we got there in the morning and we met all the athletes. They were all pumping up, getting ready, getting a tan, which is the same as what you would expect at any other show. Like it wasn't any different. But then Stu and I got to head judge the show, which was absolutely awesome. Like, as you boys know, I've never done any judging before. So I didn't know what to expect. But, you know, we agreed on pretty much everything. There was only some times where I was like, oh, I'm not sold on that placing yet. Can we get them side by side and do another round? And then just reconfirm my thoughts and what I thought, you know, the placing should be. But we were aligned with absolutely everything, which, you know, no surprise, to be honest. But there were some really tough decisions. Well, I don't know if you guys saw some of the stories, but those
I did, man. I think I was messaging you the whole time, bro. But some of those lineups, you know, to if I had to pick two, the men's physique and the classic physique, I was mind blown, man. Bodybuilding was awesome as well, and I think that bodybuilding lineup was like close to 15 competitors or something. But in terms of toughness, and I don't know if it's just because they all have like a really similar structure, you know, small waist, very similar in the broadness of the shoulders, you know, insertions look very similar, and they were all well conditioned, very well conditioned. And I thought, geez, this must be a really, really difficult job to judge. I did think in the physique lineup, I did see the winner, and I thought, yeah, he was clearly a standout. Like, he was so awesome. But second to sixth would have been in the conversation in any natty show, probably in Oz, you know, when it comes to physique. For what was around last season, so it was clearly absolute quality, man. And yeah, the female show looked awesome too. So I was kind of just sitting there on my phone, like, I think I was messaging like, quick, send me more. And you were probably like, fuck off, MG, I'm working.
I'm trying to judge, man. What are you doing? Honestly, so bodybuilding, classic, and men's physique, the lineups were absolutely incredible. And 1 and 2 in bodybuilding, the guy that came second in bodybuilding came first in classic, and the guy that came second in classic came first in men's physique. So they were all top quality competitors. We gave a pro card out for the bodybuilder, the classic, and then we decided to give 2 pro cards out to the men's physique guys because the guy that came second was incredible. And I said to Stu, I was like, you know, you've been on the judges table and you know more pros than I do. What do you think? Do you think that he would not say win a pro lineup, but would he challenge a lot of pros and potentially place above a lot of pros, like top 2, top 3? And he's like 100%. So we gave that pro card out to this guy that came second in the overall men's physique. And going back to what I said about how emotional they were, those 2 guys, and there's so many photos, I've got to post them up, they were bawling their eyes out when they won. Like when the guy won and he knew he won a pro card, he was crying. And then when we told the guy that came second that you also get a pro card, just the waterworks started. Like they were just so happy that they won a true natural bodybuilding pro card. And it was such a big deal for them. They were so emotional and just saying, thank you, like 1,001 times. So that was epic. That was epic. Scotty, I don't know if you saw them, but I was like, geez, man, there's some guys in Australia that would have a hard time against them. That they are absolutely incredible. And, you know, I'm putting all the guys on notice. If these Chinese guys come to Australia, man, you guys better bring it because they are absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. So,
well, man, all it really does, man, is just levels up the pro circuit. I mean, the relationship that we have with SCMB now is that, you know, you'll get people competing across our amateur shows, as well as our pro shows. And, there's only the 7 pro cards or whatever that were given out that day. But as that starts to build over the years, the lineups are just going to get better and better. It's just going to make for better shows, better pro shows. Yeah. And bodybuilding in Australia just continues to get better and better.
Yeah, it was incredible, man. And then go on to the females. So we had a fitness competitor, pro card there, and a bikini. And those two were the fitness competitor, she would have rocked it in that pro lineup that we had in at Nationals just recently, 100%. And even the bikini winner too, for sure. So they were absolutely amazing. They were incredible too. The women were great, and their posing were incredible too. A couple of things I learned judging for the first ever time is you never really know how good someone is unless you put them against someone else. So having someone in isolation do a walk, come down, I'm like, okay, they're pretty good. But then saying, well, I want to see them against that person, only then can you truly know how good someone is or where their gaps are. Like there was times where the classic and the bodybuilding guy, so the guy that came first and second in bodybuilding, we saw them individually in separate divisions. And I kept saying to Stewie, I can't wait to overalls. I cannot wait to overalls to see these guys together, because you just really didn't know which one was going to win. And then when we put them together, we made them do 2 rounds. We called them separately out, just individually, them two. And we literally had a little scorecard, and we're like, okay, who wins this pose? All right, that person. All right, next one. Who wins this pose? Okay, that one. And it was a split decision. It was like one pose difference. And actually, as we posed them, we rescored one of the poses and we gave it to the other person. So it can change. And another thing I learned is that posing or the way you present your physique can make the biggest difference, because there were people there that I knew they had an amazing physique, but they just couldn't pose it. And someone else next to them that made their waist look a little bit smaller, that made themselves look a little bit wider, they would win. So posing and putting people side by side was something that I learned is a really, really big deal. And then also looking back at photos and videos, don't do people justice. So when someone tries to be like a desktop judge and they're looking at their computer and their phone and like, oh, that person should have won. Can't believe they didn't win. I'm telling you right now, when you're there in person, front center in the middle, photos and videos don't do people justice. So you can never judge online. Trust me, you can never judge online. But yeah, it was absolutely amazing experience. And then we wrapped up the show. It was good. We were almost like celebrities. Everyone wanted to come and take photos with us and meet us and things like that. We presented Sean, the founder and the owner of Supercoach, with one of those undisputed belts, but it was a specific one just for him. Instead of obviously undisputed champ on it, it had Supercoach bodybuilding, and then we also had his logo on it and still our signatures on the side. So he absolutely loved that. And we gave out all the overall winners that got pro cards. We gave them NBA t-shirts, and they absolutely loved them too. So, and I've got some merch for you guys. So when I see you guys, I've got some Supercoach merch, some t-shirts and things like that. And I also bought you a gift. So I had to bring home some gifts for you guys too. But I think I showed before in the thumbnail, I got this little lanyard that it says judge on it in Chinese. So it was cool, man. It was awesome. And the whole time Stu and I were just thinking, man, I wish the boys were here. Man, I wish the boys were here. So
I know. I think the production looked amazing, like the screens, the lights, the stage. I think everyone could say that the production was phenomenal, which is definitely in line with what we do. And a lot of people were kind of wanting to know, is this something that's going to continue with NBA and SCMB? So, can you give some more information on what's potentially to come for next year?
Yeah, so one of the big things, obviously, we wanted to make sure that all their values align with us, and we already know that is the case. The next thing was we wanted to know that their divisions align with us. So there were some extra divisions that we don't do, that they do, and we're happy for them to continue to do that, but that's not something that we're going to recognize as a pro card. So they have something called Muscle Model, which is they wear their posing trunks, they're colorful posing trunks, but same cut as the classic physique shorts, I would say. And it's just front pose and a back pose. So just half turns only. And they get to do a little bit more of a freestyle front posing and freestyle back posing. But the size of those guys would be similar to a men's physique guy, obviously with some legs. So that's the kind of size. But anyways, so we kind of cleared that up from a divisions perspective, is these ones align with us, these ones don't. We're happy for you to continue to do them, but they're not going to be NBA recognized divisions. but obviously they are popular in Asian countries.
Yeah.
So they are going to come to our nationals in season A in Sydney and bring a team of athletes. And then in October, so October next year, we will do the same show we did with them again. So this time, all us four will go over there, and it will be an NBA Supercoach show. And we can bring Australian athletes. Actually, any athlete can go. So if we want to bring Indonesian athletes with us, any athlete that wants to come, it's an open invite. So I know we've already got people messaging us and saying, can we go? What can we do? And as I said before, it's similar to like our Bali. There's an athlete village. So, and there's a bus that goes backwards and forwards to the venue, etc. As I said, the apartment complex is fully serviced. There's a shopping center literally 50 meters away. So you can go to the supermarket, buy whatever you need. There's a gym on the premises. So it's awesome. If you're traveling to China, it's absolutely perfect. So we're going to be running that in October. It's most likely going to be in between our nationals and Bali show, which would be perfect for people that want to do 2 shows overseas. They could go to China, then go to Bali and then wrap it up there. It's also great for their athletes. They'll do their own China show, and then their athletes will come to our Bali show. So that's the arrangement at the moment, and we're super excited about it. And we're really grateful that they want to align with us. And I think the feeling is definitely mutual and goes both ways. So yeah, we're super excited. And I know MG, obviously, Chin Chin came with us. She's your client. If anyone didn't see her, she's the woman that's in her 50s but looks nothing like she's in her 50s. And she got her pro card in ICN Fitness, correct me if I'm wrong, ICN Sports, yeah, and also NBA Fitness and NBA Sports. And she also won the Pro Show Overall Fitness in Bali.
Yeah, and ICN too.
And ICN Pro Show.
And Sports Fitness and Sports in Bali too.
Okay, so anyways, she's incredible, right?
Yeah.
And she's Chinese, but she obviously lives here and her family's here. And she was amazing over there for us, man. She, translating everything for us, having conversations on our behalf and those kind of things, being on stage on the mic front and center, trying to translate what we're saying. We were so incredibly grateful for it. And I could imagine how much energy that takes out of someone to have to listen to all the conversations, relay them all back to us, then us to answer their question, and she relays it back to them. So we are incredibly grateful for her, for everything that she did. But did she give you any feedback, MG? What did she think about it all?
Yeah, she came back and she was absolutely over the moon. I think the highlight was just that she got to spend time with Michael Trimboli. That was one of the first things that she said. She did love that, but she certainly felt like her English had leveled up coming back. But for her to be so, I suppose, passionate about the sport and get an opportunity like that at the end of what was by far the best year of her life as an athlete was very, very special. And we'll no doubt have her take part in that moving forward. But Nundin's actually her hometown. It was where she was born, and it was a pretty special experience for her to do that. But we are very, very, very grateful to her, and it was a nice way for her to cap off her season. Kind of a bit of a congratulations and a nice fitting end to a year's worth of really hard work.
We are so grateful for her. She's absolutely amazing, and I'm sure that she'll be a part of everything that we do with them in the future, which is super exciting. But as I said, I can't wait for you guys to come because we missed you guys there. We wanted to, have that first experience with you, but I'm going to have to relive it all with you next time you come and see.
This is the other thing that she said to me, which is quite funny. She's like, as soon as she came back, she started investigating where Scott could eat that's gluten-free.
Mm-hmm.
That's so good. Do you know what? I was originally like, if I have to go over, I don't know where I'm going to be able to eat and what it's like. So did you actually do any recon on that MT while you were there? Did you notice or ask if there's any awareness on it?
Not really, because I couldn't read the menus, but to be honest, you could get away with eating pretty plain and simple. Obviously you can get rice there pretty easily. All the meats you can get, all the proteins you can get, the veggies, all that kind of stuff. I guess you just have to be mindful of the sauces they use and how they cook it is probably the biggest thing for you. Obviously there's things there I know you can't eat because some things are coated in batters and things like that. So I don't think that you could do that. So, but I think you'll be perfectly fine. I think you'll be definitely perfectly fine. Obviously, just like whenever you go anywhere, you always ask the question and just make sure that everything is, above board. But as I said to you, the room is fully equipped. It's fully serviced. There's a kitchen facilities there. There's a supermarket 50 meters down the road. You can prep all your meals if you wanted to. And, when we went out for dinners and things like that, you could just make sure that you're keeping it safe. You'd be fine. And also, breakfast is at the hotel. And again, it's similar to Bali, right? You go there, they make you things if you want. There's different salads and fruits and things like that. So even for someone in prep, if they were coming to the athlete village and staying in China, that they could definitely, have breakfast at the apartment complex, no dramas. So yeah, it'd be awesome.
That's cool.
All right, let's get into some questions because we've got a whole bunch. So let me just get through them and we'll go from there. Let's start with this one. So this one came from Julian Pengazi. So as we know, the guy from Tassie, absolutely amazing competitor, bodybuilder, classic physique. He actually got his classic physique pro card in ICN recently, and he's also just started his coaching business, which is super exciting. But one of the questions that he asked is your favorite training style method for yourselves and your clients. Is there any, Scotty, is there any way that you like to train? Is there a specific method or way you like to do things for yourself or even for your clients?
No, not really. I think programming, like one of the golden rules is it should always be individualized or bespoke to the individual. So depending on the athlete's, needs analysis and what their athlete requires as far as volume allotment, where they have gaps, once you identified what needs to be done and then the volume distribution that you need to lay it out. I think there's also things on like what's their schedule like, what's their work, because in an ideal world, you might want them to do 3 days on, day off, 2 days on, day off, but it may not, work out that way. So I think periodization is all about being able to get what needs to be done, then making it fit to the athlete and essentially providing an environment that's going to allow them to thrive. Like you want to set them up for success, not for failure. You may want them to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, but if it's not physically capable or the cost at which doing that is going to bring some recoil, then perhaps it's not worth it. So I think, can confide to just one way of doing things. It really is dependent. I mean, you've got basic splits like lower, upper, push, pull legs, EV push, EV pull. I tend to use a bit of a blend between all of that. I don't typically run like chest one day, back the next day, hamstring afterwards, IFBB sort of split. It's a little bit different. But it'll usually be directional movement based, or potentially like plane based, so anterior versus posterior, something like that.
Yeah, MG, we're probably all the same, eh?
Pretty much, man. Like the other thing to take into consideration is like, days of training. Like I've got athletes that are on 4, a lot of athletes on 5, and some athletes on 6 because I need to split volume differently based on somebody's circumstances. But it's exactly what Scotty was saying. It's because that person can't be in the gym as long. So they're doing an extra day to try and spread things out a bit. So I think just taking on board as much information of your clients' circumstances as possible is going to be the key to success, really. And just knowing that there isn't a one-size-fits-all. There is no absolutely perfect way. As long as it's working, you're hitting your minimum targets in terms of, volume allotment, and the overriding factor being that you're training hard as fuck. I think there's a million ways to skin a cat.
The only thing that I'd probably add to that is that I think us boys look at the quality of the sets and just don't give people 1,001 sets to do just to push as much volume as possible, but not have a lot of quality. So I know I have seen some training programs from other coaches where it's just like, 4, 5, 6 or more sets on an exercise where, we know the quality is going to drop off. So I think us boys, we're more around the appropriate amount of sets to get the appropriate amount of quality and intensity out of the movement. So I think we're all aligned on that stuff there. I want to move over to some supplement stuff, Scotty. So there's 2 here. The first one is it better to have creatine in your pre-workout or post-workout shake, or does it even matter?
To be honest, it doesn't really matter when you have it, as long as you're getting that total amount in. I think gone are the days now where everyone's like, you have to do a loading dose. We know now it's not required. I think it's more just working what works best for you, what you can tolerate from a digestive standpoint. But typically, if you work off a premise of around 0.1 gram per kilogram of body weight, everyone has a golden rule of like 5 grams is sort of like the bare minimum. I'll probably look at it through a little bit of a different lens now and this is something that I've looked into for a while, more so giving the consideration of thinking about brain as well as bone. And both those dosages are well above 5. It's more, I think bone is between most of the minimum dosages for bone is around about 8 to 10 grams, and brain is pretty similar or closer to 10. Brain's a bit trickier because of that blood-brain barrier. But I think if you're working off around about 0.1 gram per kilogram of body weight, so if I'm 96, 97 kilos. I do every day. I have 10 grams and I just have it in my post shake. I don't bother to split it up into 5 and 5. If you're someone that's first started taking it, I think splitting it can be beneficial. The only time that I wouldn't have it, and I do flag it sometimes when athletes mix it in their pre-workout, is because there is some pretty good research around, I think it's around about 200 milligrams of caffeine and hydrous. So supplementing that with carnitine, it actually blunts the uptake. I know people that have it in their coffee, and coffee is probably not really going to be as much of an issue, but there is some pretty robust data to sort of suggest that you shouldn't have it with high dosage of caffeine. So wouldn't have it in your pre-workout, but otherwise just have it as you choose.
Yeah, Scotty, what is it? Because I see it a lot, even, using myself as an example, I can tolerate 5 grams pretty comfortably, but as soon as I start to get closer to 10, and I think the marker for me seems to be anything 7 and above, I do get a little bit of digestive discomfort. So I tend to split mine 4 and 4 or 3 and 4, depends, just because I know that sub 5 never causes me issues. Whereas when I try to have 8 in 1, I definitely do get some GI distress. What causes that?
I think it depends on the individual, but obviously creatine monohydrate just means that it's carrying it's a water molecule. It's got a hydrogen molecule attached to it. So that's the only real difference there. But it actually helps with that, diffusing or getting across into the blood. But I think it's just a threshold of perhaps just drawing in more solutes into the stomach and then obviously into the small intestine. It's absorbed very well. It's an amino acid. It's made up of 3 amino acids, but it's absorbed very similar. So it obviously goes into the small intestine. Everyone used to think, and I used to think this too until I was educated otherwise, that it was broken down very easily at higher levels of pH. So the acidity level, like say pepsin and hydrochloric acid in the stomach, when you eat food, it breaks it all down. And the same thing used to happen with that, but it actually is really resistant to that. And so it does make its way through into the small intestine pretty cruisily. But yeah, from my understanding is it can just potentially just draw in too much water. And for some people that just cause a bit of GI distress.
Yeah.
All right. So another one for you, Scotty, for supplements, L-Carnitine. How does it actually work? What's the science behind it? If you know it off the top of your head. Again, I haven't given you this question up front, so you haven't had time to kind of brush up on your knowledge, but based on what you do know, right off the cuff, do you know how it works?
Yeah, so firstly, I will preface by saying I don't think it's a worthy investment. I do know that some enhanced people use it as a lipolytic as injectables, and I don't have a whole lot of information / really good knowledge around that. I understand taking it orally, but it's used in the process of lipid oxidation, so lipolysis. So when free fatty acids are broken down, basically they get converted into smaller molecules without going into too much nerdy science, but it gets broken down into acyl-CoA. And so basically the carnitine is paired with that to help it kind of get across that outer mitochondrial membrane and then get into. It uses these not signaling proteins. They're like, I guess they're like transferring proteins, CP1, CPT1 and CPT2. And so basically one of them, I think this will test me. I think it's carnitine palmitol transferase, I think is, yeah.
That's impressive.
I think that sounds right. I could be wrong. Again, it's been a while since I've gone over my biochemistry, but one of them helps basically get across, and then the carnitine basically attaches to it. And then what happens is once it comes out the other sides, the carnitine molecule falls away, and then basically it helps acetyl-CoA get into the mitochondria, into the Krebs cycle, into the electron transport chain, and then it makes more ATP. And so that's basically how it works. So it's almost like it helps to get across. Think of it about just getting across the first hurdle. Now, you have sufficient levels of that within your body to be able to facilitate that anyway. I know there is some studies showing that in marathon runners, they use it as a means of helping with lipid oxidation as a way of preserving glycogen and not necessarily having to use stored carbohydrate stores, so that if you've got more circulating carnitine, then essentially you should be able to, via beta oxidation, be able to produce more ATP as a result of shuttling more free fatty acids. But in terms of using it as a lipolytic, I think, we're again, I haven't looked into this more recently, like in the last sort of 18 months, but as far as I'm aware, it's pretty clear cut that it doesn't really do anything. It's more just pissing away your money. It's more just from a supplement grab perspective, saying carnitine, in this case, I'm guessing it's saying acetyl L-carnitine. It helps with mobilization of fatty acids. And technically it does, but you don't need it. It's not going to make any difference. And all the studies that I have read show that it's really neither here or there. So, yeah.
So what you're saying is it does that component, and that's accurate. But whether that translates into more fat loss is something that is a bit of a play on words and not actually accurate.
Yeah, well, you already have circulating carnitine stores, so just putting more into it, whether that's necessary or not, well, it's not necessary, so it's not going to make a difference. Equally, I think there is some research around injectables, and it does make a difference as a lipolytic, but all you're essentially doing is allowing that acetyl-CoA to get into the mitochondria via beta oxidation, and by circulating more, like, I don't think it's going to do any harm, but I definitely don't think it would even make a 1% difference. Like, if I had to choose my top 5 supplements that I could have when I'm dieting, one of them would be creatine, one of them would be protein. It definitely wouldn't be I wouldn't have that in my top 5. Acetyl L-carnitine. So yeah, I think it's probably just not probably. It is a waste of money unless you're injecting it. In which case, again, I don't have a whole lot of knowledge on that, but I understand. I know the mechanisms from a biochemical perspective, how it works. Around, helping to get across the outer mitochondrial membrane and to get into the mitochondria so that it can enter the Krebs cycle and then make its way down to the electron transport chain to make ATP. But yeah, I definitely don't think it's worth, liberating your hard-earned money towards buying acetyl L-carnitine just because it's got a picture of someone with red on their abdominals promoting that it, helps you burn fat, which is what most of them do. It doesn't work like that.
We should do a segment that's like one supplement every week, and Scotty just either does a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and then he can go and explain it.
yeah, that's a good one.
Send in your supplement request, and we'll do one next week. Scotty will give you his thumbs up or thumbs down answer. So Scotty, we'll start this week. Carnitine, thumbs up, thumbs down.
Thumbs down.
Thumbs down. There we go.
But if you want me to give a really robust, scientific answer, then I might have to get the question in advance.
Yeah, I'll give it to you in advance. Yeah.
Although part of me likes being on the spot because if I don't know and if I didn't know the answer, it means that I need to go away. And even then, I still probably will go away after this and just make sure that I am across it all. But I'm 98% sure what I said is pretty accurate.
Awesome. All right. There are 2 shows that I really want to do, but they are unfortunately about 12 weeks apart. Do you think it's doable, and how would you approach this, given that it's an awkward time frame? IFBB and NBA bikini divisions. So 12 weeks apart, I'm guessing they're thinking...
Yeah, what would that make it? I'm just trying to think what that would be. Because if we think about, what they would call season A, so winter to the mid-year season, I don't think March 30th to... What's our mid-year show?
Mid-July. Yeah, middle of July. Yeah, it'd have to be that.
It'd be season A to season B.
Yeah, it'd have to be that because from B to C, the gap is shorter.
Shorter, yeah.
And especially if it's between either one, NBA or IFBB, the gap is shorter. With IFBB in season A, it is early. It's in March.
Yeah,
so therefore, from March to July, that would be the 12 weeks this person's probably considering. So let's just assume it's that. Let's just assume it's IFBB in A, and then it's NBA bikini in B mid-year. It's actually a pretty easy process when you think about it, because you have to be the leanest for IFBB and then slightly less lean for NBA. So post IFBB show, you could have a breather, maybe even do a 6-week recovery and then come back down for another 6. So it should be actually a little bit easier, to be honest. Even if it was the reverse and you had to, do a show that you didn't have to be as lean and then 12 weeks later you had to be leaner, the same thing, maybe you have a breather in the middle there somewhere between them and then start to push a little bit harder. So it's actually really, really doable. There might even be a stage where you could recomp coming at the back end of one show by pushing cals up, recovering, and then push back down to get that NBA bikini level conditioning. So it's a long time to be in a prep or in a prep mindset, of course, because you've probably already done 20 or 25 weeks leading up until IFBB, and then you've got to extend it another 12. But it shouldn't be a hard 12. It should be the easy 12, to be honest. What do you think, Scotty, about, because I know we're spoken about bridging and that it's definitely doable. Obviously, the coach just need to know the method and how to do it. But what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. Everything you said, I concur 100%. I think it's definitely doable, but as you said, it's about mapping out and not, just raw dogging it on the fly. You want to have a little bit of prior knowledge around how you're going to go about, making it happen.
Yeah, I think you're bang on. I think if it was in an ideal world, you'd rather the one that you need to be leaner be first. Because if you had to, switch it the other way, I think that would be a little bit harder. But I reckon that would be the ideal scenario. But I'm also thinking maybe it's a different block of shows, because it's like, if that's the show, why wouldn't you just do NBA 3 weeks after that, and then you can just kind of get it all done in one go? So maybe it's not that season to season gap. But
yeah, well, another question we got, which is this person didn't write because it came in at a different time, was, are there pro cards in the winter season next year? So maybe they just want to give themselves an opportunity for that pro card.
Oh, well, that would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So if, yes, the answer is yes, there is pro cards for the winter season. The nationals will be in Melbourne, and that's where we give out the pro cards. So maybe this person wants to give themselves an opportunity to get a pro card in that winter season potentially. Maybe there's a clash, or maybe they've got something on for our season A nationals. Like, who knows? But yeah, it's definitely doable to bridge. And I think bridging either way is doable, whether you had to bridge a bigger gap between A to B or a smaller gap between B to C. I think it's all doable, and it's going to be, I think it's going to be pretty common practice, to be honest, especially next year with not only NBA running their shows, but IFBB running their shows in the middle of the year. So I think a lot of natties are going to be doing that next year for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
Another question: what is your favorite season to compete in? I've only ever done. Oh no, the first ever time I competed in 2011, which was a long time ago, they were March and May shows. So I've never done let's call it a season B. What have you done, MG? Which seasons have you done?
I've done both. Yeah, I've done two A's and two B's.
What do you like better?
I know, I like being lean over summer, man. I'm one of those people who, I'm not super food focused. So like, I don't care about missing out. I actually like to be the guy at family Christmas with his container, because I love how people just lose their fucking mind, and that's all they can talk about all day. And I like being lean when it's warm. So for me, I'm definitely a season A guy.
How about you, Scotty?
I've only ever done season B, now season C. I've only ever done shows in September, October, November. So I don't know any different. I think for me, I'm probably more inclined to want to stick with that, just because there's less shows available that I can do in season A. I don't think it would bother me dieting over Christmas. I don't really care about that. Equally, I don't mind dieting over winter either. I know some people find it hard because you can have comfort food. I don't really care. I don't even have a preference. I think more just if there's more shows that are on offer, if I'm going to put my body through that and get down to that level of condition and feeling that crappy, I don't want to get on stage just once. I've done that before, and it was not much fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're right. It really just depends on your life, your career, what you normally have on during those specific parts of the year, and what's going to help you best to prep during that time. And everyone's different. Some people have a really, really active summer and they go away with their family a lot during that time and things like that. And they're like, oh, I'd rather just diet over winter and do a season C or something like that. So it's really different for everyone depending on their life and their preference.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this one here, another training one. How do you guys adjust volume and intensity in prep when you need less volume to maintain muscle than to build it? So I think that bit's a statement at the end. You need less volume to maintain muscle than to build it. How do you adjust volume and intensity in prep? Scotty, do you adjust? As firstly, is that statement true? Do you need less volume to maintain your muscle than to build it?
Well, you don't actually, just in general, you don't need a whole lot of volume to retain muscle full stop. Mm-hmm. So whether you're in prep or whether you're not is really irrelevant. If I'm at the peak of an improvement season, if I just want to maintain, I don't need to do heaps and heaps of volume to be able to retain, both from a hypertrophy, but equally from a strength perspective.
But Scotty, do you know what was like the minimum volume allotment required? I think there was a study they did it. I think it was on like teenage boys. I can't remember when the study was, but it was like minimum number of sets per body part per week was like super minimal for retention.
Yeah, it was between 3 to 5.
3 to 5, yeah.
Provided the proximity to failure was there essentially. So it's the same thing, but I think people and some coaches maybe use doing heaps of volume thinking that it's a great way to burn calories when you're in prep, but resistance training isn't overly taxing from an energetic standpoint, whereas obviously cardio is. So I think it's all relative to how much you're doing. If you usually do, 18 to 22 sets per body part per week throughout your improvement season, I don't start my contest preps and say I'm going to drop more straight away, I'd go by how I feel. Typically, and this is where I think a lot of people maybe just lean into the I'm dieting, I'm tired, I'm sore. When in reality, if you've still got a decent amount of fat mass, then you've got sufficient energy, albeit endogenously it's stored, that you can still use to facilitate towards everything else. So it's something once you're starting to get really lean that for me, and it's something that I also really push towards my athletes, that only then do we now maybe need to make some considerations. Or if your recoverability is being compromised, then maybe you've gone from doing I used to deadlift twice a week to maybe now I deadlift once a week and it's only one set, but it's a top set and it's like 5 to 6 repetitions. And it's like I send it. So I think there's definitely elements of that. But as you get closer to stage, you want to be mindful in managing both systemic and peripheral fatigue. So I think you need to, but equally, it's always going to be athlete dependent. I've got some athletes that are in their pre-prep phase now and, are flagging. They just can't deadlift anymore because they feel like they can't recover from it. Whereas I'm here, I'm like, how can you not recover from that yet? And equally, everyone psychologically is differently geared in terms of what they're willing to put themselves through versus they're not. Versus, for me, holding on to a big stiff-legged deadlift or a big squat still in my prep it's a psychological thing, but equally it allows me to focus from a performance perspective rather than just worrying about how lean am I getting or what is my weight doing. And it's another, again, you're looking at the whole field rather than just focusing hyperly on one particular area. And I think that can actually be beneficial, like holistically throughout the whole prep. If you're not just focused, so many athletes are just focused on getting lean, but at what cost? Like if you're not putting the same attention to detail towards your performance, then like are you adamant that you're going to be able to retain as much fat-free mass as what you think you can? And I would argue probably not. And I always say successfully excludes a really good example of this on the male front. If you look at Nathan Wallace, who's just finished up at WMBF Worlds, shout out to Nate, who placed third in the pro middleweight. But seeing like 10 days out from one of his first shows, he's still pulling a 300 kilo deadlift. And that's not because he's doing it for a piston contest. He lifts heavy. He would normally probably do 4 or 5 of those sets. Granted, maybe now he's only doing 1, but like for me, it makes sense that he's giving his body a reason to retain that tissue. Like muscle is more metabolically active, not crazy metabolically active, but it still is. It will cost your body more to hold on to tissue than it does to adipose tissue. So for me, it makes sense. He's giving his body a reason to still do that. And that also probably allows him to have to use less total volume and junk volume because the volume he's doing is still of a very, very high quality. I think that's where sometimes quality over quantity can definitely come into play. But as always, context is important. But yeah, I think you should start to make adjustments to your total volume allotment once you start to see some red flags, decline in performance, decline in recoverability. I think desire to train is a really shitty metric because I don't know about you guys, but when I'm 4 weeks out, going to train can be a bit of an arduous task. So I don't necessarily think you should lean into that too much. And that's where sometimes you have to ask yourself, do I not want to do this set because it's hard? Or do I not want to do this because I'm worried that I'm tight and I reckon I'm going to get injured? And I think as long as you can be, objective about it, then you should be fine.
So it sounds like the general consensus is during prep, you wouldn't really lower intensity. You'd probably want to try to keep that as high as it can possibly be.
Yeah.
And you would never really increase set volume. It more so you would eventually maybe decrease based on some of the things that you mentioned. So I think if anyone wanted to have some takeaways is intensity should always be high, no matter what. Sets and / volume may decrease if it's only due to, recovery, injury, maybe even it's just taking too long for someone to get through a whole workout because they're just resting so much in between and it now just taking 2 hours instead of 1 hour. So maybe you might take a set or two off some exercises and things like that. So, but I don't think there would be any reason to increase the volume because you want to get more calorie burn or something like that out of it. Yeah.
And I would argue that if you're someone who thinks that if you're a coach that's trying to get them to do 2.5, and sometimes a session like, don't get me wrong, a leg session, I know in prep takes me well over 2 hours to properly warm up, to do everything and to hit your numbers. But if you're intentionally trying to drag it out and doing like volume thinking, but you're going to get more calorie expenditure, there will be some recoil to that. And you will find that later in the day, from a compensatory effect, you'll see that there will be a massive decline in non-exercise activity thermogenesis. You will move less. You won't go and wash the car. You won't want to move off the couch. You'll be slower. You'll talk slower. And so that training session will offset what you would have done later, and equally is probably going to leave you in terms of net expenditure in a worse spot than if you had, again, focused on quality, less junk volume, keeping intensity high, and then taking that approach. That also would give you the ability, maybe rather than dragging that session out, you can go and get an extra half an hour of quality cardio where you expend 300 calories versus you might be getting 300 calories an hour if you're lucky, in a resistance session.
I literally had this conversation with someone in the gym the other day when they said to me, instead of doing cardio to lose weight, why don't you just do more training and use that as your calorie burn? And I was like, firstly, you're not going to be able to burn as much as what you think. And from a recoverability perspective, it's going to put you in a hole, whereas cardio has less effect on your fatigue and your recovery. So you go in there, you do your quality sessions from a weights perspective, and the energy expenditure should be done via something that you can easily recover from. But also too is it comes from your calories too. So maybe you need to reduce calories or maybe do a combination of both. I wouldn't just do more weight training just to burn more calories to try to get fat loss. It's not a good idea. Leave that to the energy deficit from food or the energy deficit from cardio. That's not going to affect your recovery. All right, boys, we got through a bunch of questions. There's still a whole bunch to go, but next pod I won't be giving you a China update, so we can get through some more. But yeah, send through your supplement questions and also send through any dancing trends that you want Scotty to do for next month.
We're going to kick this off.
Love it. All right, boys. Well, it was good to catch up. We'll chat soon.
MT, I'll see you tomorrow. MG, I'll speak to you.
See ya.